Hey, g'day everybody, it's Matt here from Matt Carves. We are looking at the bandsaw today and the scroll saw, but through the eyes of a power carver and what power carvers can use these tools for. Let's get on with the bandsaw first and show you all about that and how I use it in power carving. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to show you the basic kind of cut you can do on a bandsaw and sort of just a tiny touch on safety. This isn't a safety video.
Okay, so just a few safety tips and sort of like the general way you cut on the bandsaw. So what you can see there, I am bringing the blade guard down, and on the bottom of those blade guard is those two kind of circle things. That's the actual guide for the blade to go through. So by bringing the blade guard down, it sort of increases the stability of the blade, but also there's not so much blade showing, so it's less dangerous. And you can sort of see I've got a push stick there, and when I want to start the bandsaw, I always want the piece of wood away from the actual blade, don't have it up against the blade. And you also want to have the bottom of that piece of wood to be flat, because the blade is pulling down. So if you had sort of like a round piece of wood, it would spin around, and that can cause a lot of trouble and usually results in maybe injury, but also the blade coming off the wheels. And I run a very small blade on this. It is 6mm in width or in depth, and you can sort of see there it does some really nice sort of like turns there. That's probably about the maximum kind of turn that you're going to do on a bandsaw.
Okay, so the bandsaw is great at cutting up sort of like odd pieces of wood into more sort of like usable pieces of wood.
Okay, so essentially when you're cutting up an odd piece of wood, you want to try and have the flat side on the bottom to start off with. Now what I'm trying to do here is I want to turn this piece of wood into a rectangle. I'm just showing you there, you can actually just take your hands away and leave the bandsaw running, because essentially the bandsaw blade is just going down. Now you can't do this on a table saw, take your hands off, or a scroll saw, but you can do it on a bandsaw in most cases. It's a beautiful grain on that. That wood there is New Zealand Pahutakawa, I believe. It's very, very hard. Well, it's quite hard, I would say. And you can sort of see me there. I'm using the push stick, just going gradually through the pieces of wood and sort of like cutting on the flat side on the bottom and turning this piece into a rectangle, which then I may turn into a tiny little wood spirit. So I was using my hands at the start there, then I turned over into the push stick.
And another use for the bandsaw is actually turning sort of like a square piece like this into sort of like a piece like this, so you can carve it and put a wood spirit on one side. Now that's done with a jig. So you could do this on the table saw, but I find the table saw a little bit dangerous for doing these kind of things. So this one just slips in like that and will go through the the bandsaw.
Okay, so just let's cut this piece of wood in two. Just be aware, like if it was too long, it would pull it down like that. You could hold it down if it was too long, but I tend to not cut them if they're too long anyway. So we want to adjust the blade guard, so we're going to pull that up a little bit just so the wood can go through, and lock that in place. And remembering to have the piece of wood away from the bandsaw blade when you turn on the bandsaw. Wait till it gets up to speed, because what will happen if you have the bandsaw blade against a piece of wood? Well, what could happen is the blade might catch on that wood because it's starting off slowly, and then pull that blade off the bandsaw wheels, and then that would wreck that bandsaw blade. And here we go, cutting it and then cut. So turn the machine off, wait till it stops, and then take the wood out. Especially with that one, because it kind of grips the blade. So there you go, all ready to do a wood spirit on there. And you might be able to remember this project when I did that kind of seafarer. I carved it in a square block of wood, but then halfway through I wanted to change it, and so I did actually stick it on the bandsaw and cut that into a 45°. Can't see the seafarer because it's on the other side. And because I had that flat surface, then I could cut away the excess around the hat and all of that, so that saved a lot of time because this wood was actually quite hard. And if you wanted to check out that full video, I'll leave a link up in the right hand corner. So it is really good for cutting away the excess on your carvings, just as long as you got that flat surface, as you can sort of see I've got there. And then you could put the hair in, or you could put the hair in and then cut around the hair.
Okay, so let's say you've got a big piece of wood like this and you want to cut it down into smaller pieces of wood like this. The bandsaw is great at doing that, and essentially it's quite a good finish on it too.
I find if I can use the bandsaw for blocking out, I will, especially in wood like this. This is oak, which is very hard to carve, so if you can get rid of the majority of wood with the bandsaw, you're pretty much winning, you know, you're halfway there. I think the favourite thing for me with the bandsaw is you can cut away the majority of wood when you're cutting out things, and this is especially true for spoons. You can sort of like make a spoon blank, so it's sort of like the general shape of the spoon, and you can cut it down from the top and then go in from the side, so you get two profiles happening, so you only end up actually rounding out the spoon. This spoon was actually quite complex to do. I think there's a final shot of it there. There's me and the spoon. I'm the one on the right. And here's another example of a spoon blank that I cut out. You can see it's quite complex actually, but this was quite a complex spoon as well. And I cut it in 2 dimensions, so you have sort of like the spoon shape there and the actual profile of the spoon there as well.
And another use for the bandsaw is actually cutting up, well, this is kind of like a home handyman kind of thing, is, you know, when they deliver wood, we can't really get a lot of wood around here, so I get firewood delivered, and you stipulate how long it's going to be, but essentially you get longer ones, and you could get the chainsaw out and brace that piece of wood, but a lot of the time I just put it through the bandsaw. So that's what we're going to do right now.
So here we go, we've got a piece of firewood here. Okay, so well, see what's wrong here. You do not put it through the bandsaw like that, because it's just going to pull it down and it's going to spin around like that. That's more like it. Have it on the flat side, move up the bandsaw blade, and I'm just checking that it will go through. Make sure it isn't against the blade. And then turn the bandsaw on. And just remember, you don't have to push it through fast. You just go, you don't actually want to push it through fast. You want to let the blade do the cutting. So this is quite soft wood, but it's quite thick, so it will take a little bit. And you can sort of see it like jiggling around a little bit. Now just kind of brace it with your hands, because you don't want it to sort of like crunch down at all, because what can happen is if there's too much of a shock that goes through the blade, it can flip off the wheel, and that's kind of the end of that blade, and you've got to get a new blade out. So there you go, that's how you cut down your firewood if it's too long.
Okay, so let's have a look at the scroll saw now. Now the blades on the scroll saw are minute. Well, that's one of the biggest ones that I use, and there is one of the smallest ones. I don't know if you can actually even see that. But so essentially with these tiny blades, what you're going to be doing is cutting up tiny things. So I sort of like use it for sort of like maybe cutting the shape of the arm of this little guy here. Really good for that kind of stuff. And sort of like on here, I used it a lot. I used it to cut this gun out, and the arms, and all these, maybe the tiny little things there. So it's really good for that, and it's also really good for cutting internal shapes. So you might like drill a hole, and then you can thread. You can't do this on a bandsaw, because the bandsaw blade is one unit, whereas these, you can cut a hole into the wood, say that's the wood there, and then thread that through and clamp it on both ends, and so you can cut the internal part of that hole out, whatever shape it is. Okay, so what would I recommend? I would recommend getting the bandsaw, and the reason why I say that is it's just so versatile, and if you can afford a good one, get a good one. It's just a great tool to have in the workshop. One caveat though, it is actually very dusty. Let me know what you've got in your workshop, and we will see you in the next video.